Today, I'm going to take you through a silk painting project step by step. In this project, I will be using thickened traditional silk paints. First, we'll cover the intricacies of mixing the silk paints from powder dye and thickener. Then, I will demonstrate how I use these paints to mimic watercolor blending and brushstrokes. I'll discuss my use of white space and how the suggestion of shadow can create shape. We'll then go through how to properly set and clean silk paintings, maximizing their longevity. After the painting has been set, I'll show you how to make a fan frame for the painting. The fan frame is a charming way to display the painting and can be easily made from obtainable materials. Finally, I'll demonstrate how I use thread to finish the edge of the painting with a complementing color. Welcome to Silk Painting, a complete guide to thickeners. I'm going to begin by mixing a thickener concentrate. This will be used to create all other paints. I'll start by adding hot water to a jar. I'm using around half a jar full. Now I will add the thickener, sodium alginate. Sodium alginate is a seaweed-based thickener. 1 spoonful will be plenty for the amount of water that I am using. Now the thickener must be stirred till fully combined. Alginate works over time. It can take hours for it to reach its final consistency. When making a concentrate, I will do my best to stir and paste the alginate until it looks smooth. It will take some patience for the mixture to become fully combined. Once combined, the mixture should look smooth and have a consistency similar to hand soap. I'll now let the concentrate sit overnight, allowing the alginate to finish thickening. The pigment I will be using to mix the silk paint is Jacquard powder acid dye. Because I'm making an acid dye based paint, I will need to make it acidic. I'm adding about a spoonful of vinegar to an empty jar. Now let's add some dye powder. I'm adding a decent amount so that the paint is quite vibrant. While working with powder dye, I am wearing a dust mask. It is important to protect your lungs from loose powder dye. Now I'm going to paste up the dye powder. I'm adding a small amount of hot water in order to dissolve the dye. Now that my dye slurry is prepared, I'm going to add some of the thickener concentrate. This should create a thick, smooth paint. Let's test the color. If the thickener is added correctly, the paint should apply smoothly and not spread. The next color I want is a saturated orange. I'm pasting up the powder with vinegar and water. Let's add the thickener concentrate to finish the paint. It's very important to fully mix the paint. Any undissolved powder can create flaws on the painting. Let's add it to my swatch hoop. The next color to mix is a light green. There is no limit to the colors you can make with acid powder dyes. Though there are many beautiful colors available straight from the jar, mixing them gives infinite combinations. To make this spring green, I'm mixing emerald green and yellow together. If a color looks too vibrant or pure, adding a tiny amount of a contrasting color will dampen it. For instance, to dampen this green a little, I have added a very small amount of red dye. When mixing shadow and highlight colors, I prefer to mix the highlight colors warmer. That's why I prefer my light greens to be a warm spring green. This requires a lot of yellow dye. The final color to mix is dark green. Because I am using this as a shadow color, I prefer it to be a cooler color. That's why I'm mixing emerald with teal. Here is my range of colors. With my paints complete, let's set up the project hoop. I've stretched my project silk on a hoop bigger than the fan template. Using a soluble pen, I'm tracing the outline of the template. This will help me place and size the painting. With a project and test hoop prepared, it is time to begin painting. I based this design on traditional Chinese painting techniques. Thus, the way the paint is applied to the brush is very important in creating the form of the flower. I'll add some of the orange paint to a mixing palette. First, I fully saturate the brush with yellow paint. Now, I'm going to coat the tip of the brush with orange paint. I am gently working the orange paint into the tip, pressing on the palette so that the paint will blend upwards. When I go to make a brush stroke, the result will be a yellow and orange blend. The placement of the orange will begin to determine the shape and dimension of the petals. The fun in this style of painting is spontaneity. Trust the brush to make a lively flower. I'm going to begin by making the spherical core of the peony. Peonies tend to have a very spherical structure and usually have a ball of petals at the center. Let's start by establishing this core. This will determine the size and direction of the flower. Notice how I hold the brush to make the shapes. The point of the brush establishes the thin petal base. Pulling the brush upwards uses the body to establish the more blunt and irregular edges of the petal. You can begin to see the core of the flower take shape. Between strokes, I'm replenishing my brush. Sometimes I'm only replenishing the orange at the tip. Peony petals are large and tend to flop and fold. I'm giving these petals a bit more dimension. I'm also trying to maintain some white space between the petals. You can start to see how the orange color becomes shadow and dimension on the petal. In truth, I practiced this painting many times. Each time, my painting looked quite a bit different. It's not really about replication, rather, it's about capturing the essence of a flower. With the core established, I'm going to fill the interior petals. We only see the tops of these petals, and they are shadowed by outer petals. I load my brush more heavily with orange and make these petals in small arc brush strokes. Once again, I'm trying to leave white space between the petal layers. Making small strokes of orange into the previous layer will help give those petals a more natural edge. I'm trying to keep all the petals pointed towards the center of the core. You can see me practice my brush strokes before I do them. I think it helps sometimes. The core of the peony is complete. Next, I'm adding a halo of petals around the core of the flower. These petals are larger and fall away from the core. Here is a closer look at that petal layer. The last layer of petals I add are large, cloud-like petals that fall away from the flower core. These petals tend to take much more than one brushstroke. I don't fully outline the flower with these petals. I place them more heavily on one side to imply the direction and placement of the flower. Like with previous layers, I try to leave some white space. Using the tip of the brush, I'm cleaning up some of the edges with the shadow orange color. These details can help the petals look like they have organic ruffled edges. The flower is complete. Let's move on to the leaves. Let's begin by preparing the brush. I'm adding some dark green to the mixing palette. First, I am thoroughly loading my brush with light green. I'm now blending out some dark green at the tip of the brush. The resulting brush strokes should be dark and thin at the tip and rounded and light at the base. I like leaves that are rounded and fluffy. I think they're cute. I'm going to place leaves in places where I think the flower needs more visual weight. While the leaves will create a nice dark frame around the flower, not many are needed. I tried to place them in places where the petals look a little lighter. Three or four will be enough. Here is the completed painting. I'll let it dry and then get to work. I've allowed the painting to dry overnight. It's now time to steam set the painting. Steam setting applies heat and moisture to the dyes, allowing them to chemically bond with the fabric. Here are the materials for steam setting. First, I need to roll the painting up in plain paper. A little Scotch tape on one edge can help keep the painting roll fixed in place. I'm rolling up the painting in the paper tightly, trying to make sure the fabric is smooth and unwrinkled. The paper will protect the painting both from water in the steaming process and from dye soaking through. I'm securing the roll with tape. Because I'll be using my bamboo steamer, I need the roll to be smaller. I'm rolling it lengthwise to make a spiral shape. A strip of tape will secure the end. Let's get this painting in the steamer. I am using a standard bamboo steamer. A paper towel will help protect the paintings from splashing water. I can fit multiple paintings in the top layer of the steamer, so I'm steaming a few of my samples. This is one of my dye pots. It fits my bamboo steamer perfectly. I've added about a ½ inch of water in the bottom. I'll steam these for 2 or 3 hours. Every 15 minutes or so, I'll add more water to the bottom of the pot. Once the steaming is finished, let them cool down. Let's wait until they're dry to unroll. Immediately after steaming, I must wash the painting. This will remove any excess dye that was not able to chemically bond with the fabric. I'm using Synthropol, a very strong detergent that will prevent any transfer dyeing. I'm going to rinse this under cold water and allow it to air dry. While those paintings are drying, I'm going to build the fan stem. First, I'll glue this small filial into the bottom of a dowel. This will make the end of the dowel prettier and soften any sharp edges. I'm wiping off the excess glue while it's wet. This is easier and faster than sanding it. Now let's stain the stem. I'm using a dark water-based wood stain. I think this stain looks quite beautiful next to the painting. I'm using a brush to apply the first layer because the details of the filial can be a little difficult to cover. I apply to all surfaces of the stem, including the unfinished end. I'll end up doing 3 coats of stain. Let's allow these to dry. To make the fan frame, I'm using a thick millinery wire. However, any stiff wire will do. On paper, I've traced out the shape I want the frame to be. Using pliers, I'm bending the wire into that shape. The complete frame should be a closed shape. Now it's time to attach the fan frame to the stem. First, I am drilling a hole for the bottom ends of the frame. This is a small hole that is closer to the front of the dowel. I used a hand drill because I find it easier to control. I take it slowly to avoid splitting the dowel. Next, I will file an indent at the top of the stem. The top of the frame will be glued down in the indent. I'm going to carefully apply glue in the 3 attachment points. The 2 edges of the fan frame are glued into the holes. I'll gently place the top of the fan frame to glue in the indent. Clamping the top will assist in a tidy glue. Here's the completed frame. With the frame completed, I can now add in the painting. I'm going to start by stretching the painting again. However, this time I will be stretching it with the wrong side facing up. I make sure the painting is pulled taut, but not overly so. With the painting stretched again, I can begin to visualize how it will sit in the frame. I will be placing the frame using clear glue. Let's trace the outside of the frame. Now, let's cautiously place the frame. Misplaced glue can stain fabric, so I'm trying to be very careful to get it right. Press down gently on the frame, making sure the glue adheres to the fabric. I let it glue overnight. Now the painting has been placed in the frame temporarily. Let's cut away the excess fabric. I'm trimming quite close to the frame, but I'm careful not to trim inside of it. This fan is finally ready for thread binding. I will be using silk thread to bind the edges. I've chosen a color that I think will look nice with the painting. Using a single threaded needle, I finish the edges using a blanket stitch. This stitch goes through the painting and around the frame to permanently secure the fabric. I made these stitches very close to one another to fully cover up the raw edge of the fabric. I realized it was a little easier to work with the fan clamped down to the table. The process is definitely time-consuming. It makes the painting look smooth and even, however, and it makes the edges very beautiful. Here is the complete project. I've added a tassel at the bottom for a little charm. The fan itself is very light, but the dowel and frame are sturdy. While the painting has been heat set, I will still avoid exposing the piece to excess water. If you're interested in making this fan, you can find a link to written instructions in the description. Thank you for joining me.